they took us to the station and to Auschwitz.
Um, Now, when I talk like I'm looking over there, and so I'll look up that way. I'll try to, if I find that you're looking too far, yeah, I'll go like this, and that means
Okay,
look at me.
right.
Right? And you getting us on there? You get enough of him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you speak just one more sentence a little bit louder?
Yeah,
Just a little bit
a
louder.
little bit louder.
If you
Okay.
don't mind.
So I start out with the place I was born, right? And after that,
And when you were born,
and when I was born,
your birthday, and
right,
spell your name, the birth name that you had.
right. Okay,
And if you miss something, I'll remind you.
okay,
And
good
then you
enough.
talk about your family. Today is November 7th, 1995. The survivor is Morris Stern. The interviewer is Marvin Greenberg. We are in Royal Palm Beach, Florida, USA. The language is English, and this is tape number 1. Today is November 7th, 1995. The survivor is Morris Stern. The interviewer is Marvin Greenberg. We are in Royal Palm Beach, Florida, USA. The language is English. Good morning, Mr. Stern.
Good morning.
Would you please tell us your name and spell it, and tell us something about where you were born and your town and your family?
My name is Morris Stein. That's the name I was born with. And I was born in Czechoslovakia, December the 4th, in 1926. And the name of the town was Kajdanova. And we moved from there to Holobino, where my father lived. And was a very nice village, between a village and a small city. And there was quite a few Jews living there. And there was main street like town, a nice town, and then there was a village on the both sides, and where the Gentiles lived. And the relationship was very, very good. Growing up, I start remembering from when I was about 4 years old, and start going to Cheder, which is a Hebrew school. And by 6, I start going to Czech school. We had a nice big family there living. My father had 2 sisters who lived there. And my mother had cousins in the next town, which was very close families. And the life was very, very nice. And I had a brother after me was born, and then I had a sister, and altogether I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and we also had a maid. Life was comfortable, nice. Family life was very, very close. We got along beautifully. My grandfather lived in the same town. He had quite a bit of fields and orchards and other kinds of things. The people, the Gentiles, used to work for a third. He used to give them out. They used to raise the cows. They used to raise the wheat, the orchards, the corn, the potatoes, and they used to get a third, and he used to get the rest of it. And also, when those Gentiles, they used to have kids, he used to give for every kid a piece of land when they were born, And when they were of age and getting married, he used to give them some of the animals, like, to start them out in life too. And it was okay for quite a while. Life was great. It was a life like better than in the United States. The Jews had it very, very good under President Masaryk. He used to go to the temple and take home a kid and call up the parents and say, I have your kid here, so don't worry about it.
Who said this?
President Masaryk, he used to take home, not from our town, but other towns. So the Jews had it very, very good there until the war started out.
Before you go on, what did your father do as an occupation?
My father did for an occupation, he was in insurance, and he was also with the banks connected. People needed mortgages, borrowing money for certain things. He used to arrange everything for them. And he used to get the papers and sign. He used to do all the work for them. And that's the way he used to make a living.
Was he religious?
No, he was not a religious per se, a religious man. He kept the high holidays, he kept Sabbath, but if there was no business, he went to the temple and so on. But to take a bus or something like that, he used to get out of town and
even on
do
Shabbos?
that. Well, not a lot of times, but some of the times, not too often. And he was a very good provider, and we had a nice home, which consisted of a 5-room house and off the road. It's like when you go here to a very upgrade neighborhood where it's off the road, you drive in, and that's the way we used to live.
And so you had a fair amount of land?
A fair amount of land, yes. And it was right in the town, and the main street, like Main Avenue, and it was businesses, of course. There was groceries, there were shoe stores and everything else. And there wasn't no manufacturing, but there was a lot of wood cutting and trains coming and picking up stuff, which my grandfather was involved too, and part owner of that.
Part owner of what?
Of the woods, the lumber companies, yeah. And my father kept busy with that too, so it was, considering it was a beautiful life. I mean, nice place to grow up. The kids used to go to Czech schools. We used to go on hikes overnight, and they used to call that place the Rozhok, the mountains, and the Czech from Czech teachers, and it was really something for a kid to remember the good things until the problem started out.
About how many people lived in this community?
In this community, I would say we had about, with Jews, about between 40 and 60 families, Jewish families in that small town.
And what was the proportion of Jews?
The Gentiles were, I would say, 10 to 1. And in that town, that region, I mean, that small village.
And what was this village near?
This village was near Svaljava. It was between Svaljava and Polena. And we also had there mineral beds. They used to come from all over from all over Czechoslovakia. They used to even come from the United States. I remember it used to be people who used to come to take those baths. And it was like about half a mile away from where we lived. So it was a summer resort that people came and they took baths there, and they lived there. They had like here these bungalows, and they used to stay there for the summer.
Like
and
a
for
spa.
the summer, like a spa. It was a spa, yes.
What
it
was
a
the
spa.
name of it? Do you remember?
The name was the Louis.
How do you spell that?
The Louis, it's Luhis, I think. I'm not sure of the spelling.
Louis.
The Louis.
With a D on the front or no?
No, but in the front, L.
Oh, okay.
The L in the front. And it was, did not drink the water, although we had the pumps and the what do you call it, the
Well,
wells. So, but everybody used to go on the bike, and they used to have those big bottles, the 5 gallons and 10 gallons on the bikes, and they used to go to fill it up there with the soda water. It used to be like a seltzer. And it was controlled by the health department, and it was a bottling company too, which they imported all over, exported all over the vicinity. I don't know if it wound up here or not. Also, there was a lot of farms that they used to produce butter, cheeses. They used to have markets that they used to bring out the eggs and stuff like that, and vegetables in the summertime, and sell it on the market, in which a lot of people made a living like that. And the Jews used to be the entrepreneurs, what you may call, and they used to be the doctors, the lawyers, the teachers, the storekeepers, the mills they used to own. They used to make the oil, they used to make the flour, and they used to distribute things, and they used to have there for from the temple, the Jews used to get together. There used to be some Jews who couldn't afford things, and they couldn't make a living like the rest, and they used to put their money together, and they used to help out. They used to come Easter time, and they used to supply from the matzahs to the wine to the food to the Passover, right, and all the holidays. They used to buy the clothes for the kids and just send it over, not to make it obvious that they giving charity or something like that, you know. Used to leave it in front of the door, stuff, you know, the baskets of things. So the Jewish community was always together. Used to be on Sabbath, they used to get together. Families used to come together, like, for instance, by us. We used to have from back of the house a big, you used to call it there a porch. It's here they call it under, where they have the swimming pools under the roof, the, what do you call it, it wasn't enclosed, but it was with a roof.
Oh.
And families used to gather, like, used to be 30, 40 people with the kids, and they used to collect their walnuts and fruit, and used to, every Saturday that was a thing that they used to get together, the family, in the afternoons, and spend time together. And if, God forbid, if somebody was sick, a kid, or in any family, everybody used to run and do things, and whichever way they could help. It was very close, knit family.
Did you belong to any youth groups? Or?
Yes, I did. I used to belong to the Betars. It used to be an organization, an Israeli organization. I don't know how to.
The Zionist organization.
It's our Zionist organization, yes. The Bedar, the youths, we used to have those little uniforms and the hats, and we used to go that to that place, the Luhis, where there used to be the beds, used to take, and we had their exercises and singing the songs and learning about Israel and Palestine in those days, and it was a very nice life, and it was very nice for the young kids to be brought up. I mean, there was freedom. It was no hate in those days. We didn't have not openly anti-Semitism, and I mean, everything was going along very well and very nicely, which nobody wanted to immigrate to any other place to leave the town, in which my father did have a chance to leave and come to the United States, which he wouldn't. And
when was that?
That was in the 1930s, early 1930s, which my mother had a couple of brothers here and a sister in the United States, which they asked him to come out, and he wouldn't do it because they had life here tougher than he had it there. So in those days, nobody dreamed that something like that will happen in Czechoslovakia, that somebody's going to come in and destroy the Jews. And,
what was your mother's name?
My mother's name was Sarah.
Sarah, and her maiden name?
Her maiden name was Weber.
Mm-hmm.
And she became Stein after marriage. And she got married when she was very young. I was born when she was 16 years old. And every other year or every 2 years was another child born. And life was pretty wonderful, I would say, as a kid.
When did things start to change?
Things started to change in the late 1930s. The Ukrainians came in first, which it was rough a little for the Jews. Not bad, but not good.
Was this when Hitler took apart Czechoslovakia?
Right. Then the Hungarians came in, which it was already, they start taking away everything from the Jews. Start taking away the businesses. They didn't let the Jews, the Czechs were out. There was no more Czech schools. It became the Ukrainian school, like Russian schools and Hungarian schools. And the change was very harsh, especially for the young kids, for the young Jewish boys. When they were 12 years old, the Hungarians, they took them away to the Leventas, which was cutting woods in the woods. And
took them away to the what?
To the woods, cutting woods.
What did you gave a name? What was it? Leventas?
Leventas.
How do you
That's Leveve. Notes.
Mm-hmm. And what
And
was that?
something that was like labor camps, and they took away the kids. Sometimes they kept you there for weeks. Sometimes they let you go home for the weekend. Sometimes they give you off for a while. But the men and the Jewish men, they took away to the Munkatabors, which it means to the army. But they did not wear army uniforms. They only had a hat to wear. They gave them an army hat. And they used to dig the ditches, they used to do the heavy work, and they used to be in the front.
This was after the war started.
This is after the war started, yes, with Germany, but we weren't at war yet. I mean, there was no war. They just came in, they marched in, they took over without being fired or shot.
Was this before the Germans invaded Poland, or
That
after?
was not, it was after the Germans invaded Poland.
Mhm.
Also, it was very bad. My father, should rest in peace, he was connected to all kinds of offices, to all kinds of people that he knew how to keep get papers for people who used to run away. People from Poland, you heard in 1939 it started out there very badly. They took them away in the ghettos, and there it was the first thing that they started out with the Jews. Some of the families came running to Czechoslovakia, and my father was involved. Not my father, but all the Jews in the town. Everybody was involved. They put their monies together. They bought homes, houses from the Gentiles, or they rented houses from Gentiles. Most of the Jews, they were manufacturers, or they owned a company which was run by the Gentile, and they put them into work there, but they couldn't work unless they had citizenship papers. My father was one of the guys who was involved in it, and he had the connections to get them citizenship papers.
The Polish Jews?
For the Polish Jews, that they came with their families. So in 1939, 1940, 1941, and there was quite a few Jews who came in. But they didn't only settle in our town, they settled all over. They settled in Swaljowa, they settled in Nilipina, they settled in Polina, they settled in Munkac, they settled them all over the vicinity. And they grabbed a few, and most of them never squealed, even though they got killed or they got arrested or whatever. But some of them, they gave away my father's name, that he gave him the papers.
Was this now part of Hungary or Ukraine, or what part of each?
This was, in those days, it was a mixture, the Ukrainians and the Hungarians. They were the representative of the German thing, government or something like that. So there was a big thing. I mean, my father-in-law, my wife's father, he was a lawyer, an attorney, which they couldn't practice. They took, they closed them up. He had employees, which they didn't have no work. So if they took everything away from the Jews, if they owned the factories, it was taken away. If they owned the businesses, it was taken away. They let them stay in the houses, but some of the people, they didn't have enough money. The money only lasted for so much because the banks didn't give it back to the Jews. Or there were Jewish banks which my wife's cousin owned, and they took her away. And it was very, very rough. So in between, like my family, once they took away my father, and we never knew where they took him, in what jail, and what the questioning was, or anything like that. And we were 5 children, my mother, and so whenever I could, I used to go and get some whistles and some tchotchkes, all kinds of small items for kids, and used to buy the rubber boots and anything, rubber tires from bikes, from anything. And I used to go into all kinds of villages. We used to go on the train, and the wood train, like I explained you, that the train was carrying wood only. And when there used to be the curves, when they had to slow down, we jumped we got on it and went from town to town with sacks, and we used to park the bike in the bushes, you know, and we used to go out the full day and come back and sell the rubber because there was shortage, and I don't know what they did with the rubber, but some of the rubber soles like we have here, the yellowish rubber, they made glue from it. They put some kind of acid or something, and it became a glue.
Who did you sell to?
We sold it to people who used to buy old rubber. It's like here, you go in to sell the aluminum cans for recycling. It's not the same principle.
What cities did you go to do this?
We went to villages mostly, only where the kids didn't have anything, the Gentile kids. And for a whistle, they went and they even stole their father's boots or a tire or whatever thing, you know, and we used to sell it, and that's the way we used to get by.
So you sold them whistles and toys?
For the rubber, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, small items, a knife, you know, all kinds of tchotchkes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I used to help support the family until they clamped down, and then they kept us longer and longer in the woods, and it was 1940.
Let me go back a moment. They took your father away when?
They took my father away in 1943.
And what was the month?
The month was somewhere like May, May and June, something like
and
that.
what happened to him?
We don't know anything what happened to him whatsoever.
You never heard from him anymore?
We did not hear from him till they brought him back.
Oh, when did they bring him back?
They brought him back in 1944 at the beginning, somewhere, and just before Passover. It must have been like the end of February, beginning of March. And he died like 3-4 days later.
From?
From the beatings, from the abuse, from starvation, from anything. I mean, when they brought him back, he couldn't even talk. I mean, he was finished. And right after that, they took us away to the ghettos.
Who brought him back?
The Hungarians brought him back in a like a pickup truck and on stretchers.
Did you know where he had been?
Well, they did say that he came back from a Hungarian town. It used to be Czechoslovakia, Miskolc, somewhere around that vicinity. They kept them.
What was it called?
Miskolc. I don't know really how to spell it. It's a town.
Near?
Near, well, it's somewhere near, truthfully speaking, I can't even pinpoint where it was exactly.
Okay.
And
We stopped it. Please continue, Mr. Stern.
also,
This is-
Before I go on-
got this.
before I go on, I would like also to mention that in childhood, the town we were living, we were not far away from the woods, like a little walk. And we used to go and pick strawberries and raspberries and filbert nuts and mushrooms, and which it was very nice for the kids. And there was a mixture in those days. It was Jews and Gentiles. We went to the same classes. And also it was camaraderie. And life was pretty good until also when they start taking us together to put us into the ghetto. My grandfather, should rest in peace, he used to be one of those people who used to care for others, regardless if they were Gentiles or Jews. And he used to give them a piece of land when a kid was born. And when the kid was getting married, he used to build a house, pay for it, and give him some kind of animals for his own that he should start out in life. And he also worked for him for a third. And when they took us away, they showed their anti-Semites, which they were kicking him, spitting at him, and took him to the ghetto.
The people that he gave things to?
The people who he gave things to. And they called them Barchavete Jew, that means the dirty and stinking Jew. And they showed their colors after that. So it wasn't pleasant to see that you thought that they're your friends, and they made a living from him, and he was so good to them, and a livelihood and everything else. So it was pretty bad feeling that it came to that. And just before that, they brought my father home, like I mentioned before, and he was alive for about 3-4 days, and he passed away. And they took us away to the ghetto, in the ghetto Vasajvic, Teglogyár, they called it in Hungarian, which it means the brick factory. And they put together all the Jews there, and they were kept in there, and the Hungarian police were watching. They used to call them the Shandars, and some of the Hungarian military too. Until we were there, I would say about 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. It couldn't even been that long. I would say about 4 or 5 weeks.
The brick factory was in what town?
And, the brick factory was in Munkács. They had two brick factories, which they put together all the Jews from all over the neighbors' towns. Some of them wound up in the Sajvic Teglogyár, and some of them wound up in the other Teglogyár. And they kept us there, and everybody got a piece of floor, which their family stayed, the whole family, which happened to be, there wasn't too many men, because the men they took away in the army, which they weren't soldiers, but they were just given a cap to wear, that they should know that they are belong there. And they were doing all the dirty work for the soldiers in the fronts. They used to make dig up the branches, whatever you call them, where they're shooting from, and carrying everything. And So there weren't too many men. There were mostly women and children and the older men.
Were
like
they in
my
big
grandfather.
rooms?
No,
Big-
there was no rooms. There was no room. There was
Just one
open
big
space.
hall, one big space.
It was like ovens, and that's where you stayed. And some of them was just big buildings where they stored the bricks, and that's where they stayed.
There were no partitions between
No
the families?
partitions between families whatsoever. And
No privacy.
no privacy. No, privacy didn't exist. And from there, the real trouble started out. They start taking us to the trains and packing us in the cattle cars and taking us to Auschwitz. And I was there in the Tegel yard. We had my all my families. They had my father's sisters, their kids. I had there from my mother's side, the families. All the kids. And took us, I don't know how long it took us to get there. Packed like cattle. And once we got there, they separated everybody, whoever could work. That Mengele was there, and he was so he was staying there with few SS people. The band was playing, and to the left and to the right and to the left and to the right. And once we got there, he was there with a big stick, like a broomstick almost, that heavy. And he was hitting right in the collarbone. You go to this, you go here, you go there, and we were separated. I never saw my mother or my brothers or sisters. I had one cousin with me that he came with me. And
Which way did you go?
I went to the right of the working for work. And they took us into barracks. And they gave us beds, which it was no bed. It was just wooden beds, you know, climbing up. It was like 4, 5, I can't remember exactly.
All the rest of your family went to the left?
Yes. Well, one of my sisters didn't, but I never found out anything. But most of the people, most of them went to the left. I had about 3 or 4 of our family coming to the right, going to work. And then from there, we stayed in the line. We had to undress and just leave everything the way it was. And they said, you're going into showers to people. And we saw it. We were staying in the sideline. And the women had to get undressed and with the children and everything. And they put them into those gas chambers. I mean, not gas, to the showers, and they gassed them.
You saw this?
I didn't see them being gassed because we were on the other side, the other part of the thing, and we also went into the showers, but we did take showers, and we came and they gave us uniforms, striped uniforms. Okay, so anyhow, they went into the barracks, which I don't know what happened there.
You mean that your relatives?
Yeah, my mother, my brothers and sisters, and all the rest of the family.
Went into some buildings.
They went into some buildings, yes. And we went to the right, and we went to the other side. And we went in, they gave to us showers. They did give us showers. And they gave us uniforms. We got our uniforms. We went into barracks. They placed us into barracks, which I think it was 4 or 5 to a bed, which it was only boards, nothing underneath. And we stayed there for a while. Food was like 8 people or 10 people. I don't even remember how much. Was bread, and they sliced it, and they gave everybody a thin slice with some Limburg cheese. That was your food consumption. And they did not put us to work. After that, they picked out people to work, and they made transports. And they sent us to Mauthausen. In Mauthausen, they sent us to Gusen. That was a Vernichtungslager.
It was a what?
A Vernichtungslager.
Meaning?
Meaning, once you go in there, you don't come out. You work as long as you can. If you can't work, you go into the gas chambers. And they put us in barracks the same way.
And this was after you had been in Auschwitz how long? About?
Auschwitz, I've been, I would say, about a week, 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Altogether, Auschwitz and Birkenau, I was like about 2 weeks, because they took us from Auschwitz to Birkenau, which was right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they took us to Mauthausen. And from Mauthausen, they took us in a transport to Gusen, which I mentioned before, it was a Vernichtungslager. And there, they put us to work. So we started out working in a stone factory, and a stone quarry, whatever you want to call it, to break stones and to load stones on trains and things like that. And worked there for not a long time, for about 2 months or something like that, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter. From there, they took us to work in tunnels, building tunnels, and there they manufactured the planes, ammunitions, and they were bombing it, but they never could penetrate into the thing, because you came in with a train there, which they dug out, you know, and we were working like 12, 14-hour shifts. And also we were in barracks, which there was a capo, and he controlled the people in there. And also we had to go to Tselapel. I don't know if you heard of Tselapel. Tselapel is you come out and they count you early in the morning with nothing on and the nude. And sometimes once a week or twice a week you had to go to take a shower in the snow, which it was 0 degrees or below 0, and go back to the barracks and get dressed and line up again and go to work in trains. They put you like kettles, SS sitting in each end of the train with machine guns. And that was called the Meckelgruppe, which it was a tunnel they were digging, and they had the belts like when you saw in the coal factories.
Conveyor belts.
Taking out the dirt. And the Germans, not the SS, but private German citizens, engineers who were working with us, but they had capos, and they had the SS coming in with the dogs, with the German shepherds. And you were working, and if you stopped, you used to get beatings. Sometimes if they let the dogs just chew you up, and they throw you on the conveyor belt, and that's about it.
Did you ever see that happen?
Yes, I saw that happen. I even saw happen that some guys that I was working with, I wasn't far away, because I was in the tunnels. They put up where they put the cement. You had to go on top and walk on that cement, because there was no room for them to press down the cement or smoothen the cement. They put in the wrought iron or iron reinforcements, and then they start pouring the cement, and we used to have to go and walk in that cement, bend down, you know, and just walk on that cement.
To pat it down.
To push it down, to make, what you call it, yes, that it should be pressed down. And they were, an SS came in, and which it was, I would say, about 30 feet away from me, maybe 30 feet. And there was some Russian Polish and Russian prisoners too. They used to call us the Häftlingen. So they couldn't take it no more, because the dog got a guy that chewed them up so that they just put a bullet into the guy, and they threw him on the conveyor belt with the dirt to take him out. So the guys jumped on him, and they killed him with the shovels.
Killed who?
An SS man.
Oh, the Russian and Polish. Were they?
I don't know if they were Jews or not, but they were speaking Russian and Polish. And they got rid of one of the SS, and they killed the dog too. And they were in different barracks, so I don't know what happened after that. And they questioned everybody, and they hung somebody, and they shot people for it, and nobody came out what happened. So I don't know if they ever found out about what happened. Things were very, very bad. They had a latrine, in other words, a bathroom, which it was, I would say about 60 people, 50, 60 people could sit there on one time and go there. And they also had a shower thing, which you couldn't go by yourself, only when they took you, they let you go, and you were working sometimes a shift and a half or sometimes 2 full shifts. Most of the time you ate was only, they fed you with soup, which it was called, they feed the cows with it. It looks like a big horseradish, a big radish, the black ones. I forgot how you call it. It used to be sweet, and they used to make soup out of that and feed it to us. And they used to give once a day a bread for 12 people. They used to slice it up and a bowl of soup. And from the soup, everybody had the runs until you got used to that stuff.
When did they give you this? What time of the day?
They gave you that when you came back from work.
Mm-hmm. What did you call that transport? You could Mecca something?
That was Meckelgruber.
Meckelgruber.
Meckelgruber, that means you're digging the tunnels. And I worked there for, I would say for about 7 months, 8 months, 7 months, 8 months, something in that vicinity. And after that,
Excuse me, how did you sustain yourself nourishment-wise on just that amount?
nourishment-wise was what you heard, from a bread, a soup, and when they used to throw out the peels from the potatoes, they used to grab it and they used to eat it. I used to eat it. If you found a worm, they used to eat it.
You too?
I ate, I found, for instance, they used to call it chigobigos, which is a snail. And they used to suck her out from the shell.
You too?
Many times, many times. Also, in the barracks, the wires, where the SS were watching, there was the wires were electric wires, electrocuting people. There was a guy from Svaljevo who was a barber at home. He was a young kid, but he was, when the family has a place, you trained for it, to take over the business and stuff like that. So he was a barber, and they used to throw down something. So you should go for it, the SS. And if you touched the wire, you got electrocuted. Or if you didn't touch the wire, they shot you with the machine guns. Also, if something was wrong with you, let's say you were limping, or let's say you couldn't work, you were gotten rid of right away. So the protection was there. Everybody covered for each other. If you couldn't walk, they used to hold on to you. They used to carry you with the arms around, and that's the way we survived that thing.
What happened with the barber?
With the barber, cut his throat. They shaved our heads in the middle. And the hair was on each side, and in the middle he shaved the head. That was his job there. So he was kept busy, and the starvation and the pain and everything, he cut his throat. He cut his own throat, not to go through no more with it. And the transport there was like 67,919 people in my transport. And I don't know how many came out alive. I would say if from the 67,919 people, if this was survived 75 to 100, then there was a lot.
How do you know that original number?
The original number, I remember when we got there, I was a kid. I was like 16, going on 17 or 16. And there was a doctor, his name, he was from Munkac, his name was Dr. Havashi. And he said that the transport consisted of 67,919.
Was he one of the members of the transport, or did
He was
work?
one of the members of the transport. And he was also helping a lot of people, a lot of kids, a lot of people. And, you know, if something was wrong, like, for instance, if you had a hernia, because you got there was so many people getting hernias in the stone factory there that it was ridiculous, and it came out, and they were in agonies. And if you went to the hospital, forget about it. You never came out. So he used to push it back. And he used to do a lot of things, like if you had a cut, there was no way for you to, if it was an infection, to clear it. So what he used to do is urinate on your foot, or urinate in a piece of paper or something, and put that on. That's the only thing that's going to cure it. Nothing else will. So, and it stuck in my memory that there was so many guys just took them and they killed them, they clubbed them. They just clubbed them like with a baseball bat. They didn't even shot them.
Who did that?
SS. And they used to have fun with that. So it was terrible. Very, very bad. And people used to eat grass. People used to eat bugs, which I never did. I ate grass. I ate that slimy things getting out of the shell. And that's the way you survived. Until there were things that were impossible to go with it, that people gave up. And then the Germans we were working, they used to say, good.
Okay. Very good. Today is November 7th, 1995. The survivor is Morris Stern, and this is tape number 3. I Could you spell the name? You remember the doctor that you talked about? Could you spell his name?
Yeah, his name was Dr. Hovashi. I think it spells H-O V or W-O-I-Z-Y. I'm not sure.
And he was Jewish, or?
He was a Jewish doctor, yes. And he was also from the same vicinity, around the same vicinity. I'm not sure if he was from Munkach or not. I think maybe he could have been, and he helped quite a few people through a lot of dramatic times. And it was pretty rough with those hernias, which if somebody they couldn't stand the pain or something, they killed them. They just clubbed them to death. And also the weather was very severely cold, and we worked in the knuckle grouper, and they had the sandbags from the cement bags, whatever you want to call them, and we used to cut out arms and a head, and we used to put that on, and on top of that we used to put on the uniform, the jack, which was white uniform with blue stripes. I don't know if you ever saw it or not. And that's the way we existed, and that's the way we fought it. Also, among the Germans who were the engineers, they gave us a lot of hope. Some of them were pretty good, decent people. And they said to us, just try to bear it. He says, you know, the war is going to be over pretty soon. You could hear the fighting. He says, and if you could hold on, you're going to come out alive. But if you're going to give up easy, you're not going to be able to survive it. So, which we live from day to day. Maybe tomorrow it's going to be the end to the war, or maybe we will survive. And some people couldn't hold on. They just killed over. I mean, they gave up. They didn't fight it. Also, with me, it was a little bit different. I wanted to stay alive, and I wanted to go back to my hometown, where my grandfather helped all those people, and they kicked him, and they spit at him, and they called him dirty names and dirty Jew. And I lived for that day. I should be able to go back and to really take care of that those people. But thank God I did survive it the hard way till it came.
Before you go on, did any of these German civilians help in any way besides encourage?
Yes, some of them, they did help. They gave you an apple. They gave you a couple of raw potatoes. I mean, they weren't allowed to do it. And I don't know if they would have done something to them or not, but they did. They looked at, especially at the young people, the young kids. The older people didn't come out. They went much faster than the younger people did. Also, I never thought I'm going to make it, because the people from my town, which I was what you call a nabachel, you know, a weakling, and they were the big, you know, brutes and strong and everything. So they went first. They went, I don't know why, they went first. And
did they ever give you anything, these civilians?
The civilians, yes, I got from them. I got, some of those Germans saved my life, yes. I had a couple, for instance, in my barrack, who I was pretty sick. I couldn't walk. And they put me in already to, whatchamacallit, to a room that they're gonna gas us and take us out. He came, he took me out from there and put me into bed, to the regular place. And he kept me there as his, not a helper, to clean him, clean his shoes and stuff like that. So that guy, he was a German, he was a prisoner of prisoner of war for the reason that he didn't agree with Hitler. So he took pity on me, and he took me there. I slept there with the rest of the guys, but everybody went to work. I was inside there. He had like a cubic thing, separated from. He was in the block because it was one big room, and he had a little square like 10 by 10 or 12 by 10 or something like that, and he had a bed in there, and he had a nightstand in there, and a chair and a table, and I was cleaning his shoes and cleaning up there, and he kept me till I was able to get back on a little bit of my feet, and he gave me some rationings, and he did help me, that man, which it was very seldom that you saw. And after that, the war came near, and they took us for the Death March. And from the Death March, it started out there, and it took days, weeks, months, I don't know. At that time, I lost already track of everything. I lost already track of time. I lost already track what was going on. I had a very rough time. I don't know how I made it. We were walking, and if somebody couldn't walk, they killed them right on the spot. The German people saw it. The German people didn't do anything about it. They wouldn't throw down a piece of food or anything like that. And at nighttime, they got us against a river, and they were the Wehrmacht, some SS, but mostly the Wehrmacht, and they were guarding us, and we didn't get no food. The only thing is that some people had matches, and they had like tomato cans, the V8 cans, and they took together some pieces of wood or straws, whatever they found from that sea, coming, and they made a fire, and they took grass, and they took whatever they could find, the worms, or they could find the chigobigos, what I mentioned, the snails, and they put her in, and they made soup out of that, and to whoever could find anything, the grass, and that's what we existed upon until we got to Gunskirchen. And Gunskirchen, when came there, there was a very, very big, like a big building, not a tall building, but a big room, and you were packed in like sardines in there. And outside, they were sitting, and the SS were in the rest of the building, like it looked like villas, like a two-floor villa. And they had a lot of fun with us. They were aiming and shooting, and people were laying underneath. I was underneath some of the bodies. And
the bodies?
So yes, bodies. I had pictures. They exist today, and they are in Washington Holocaust Museum. They never. My sister-in-law sent them. I had 6 pictures from there, 6 or 7 pictures, and I took it from an SS coat pocket.
A camera?
No, not the camera, the pictures. He had it developed.
Yeah.
Yes. And the bodies all over lying. And my sister-in-law decided to send them to the Washington Holocaust Museum.
Now you say they were shooting at the people at random?
They were shooting at random because the people couldn't walk. I mean, everybody looked like the Muslim man. I mean, there was no nothing. And all of a sudden, you heard the war going on, the shooting, and we knew that they're very, very close. And all of a sudden, the shooting stopped. The SS weren't around, but I couldn't get up. Some people were able to get up. Some people were able to organize, go do things. They had a little strength left. But also, when they start eating, they turned yellow and they just died. I didn't have what to eat. I couldn't go to get it because I couldn't get up. So, the Americans came in and they start loading truckloads. And they took us to Wells. They called it a Kasarne. It's where the Germans had their officers staying. It was like a big castle. When you walk into a castle and you walk through, it's a courtyard, but the courtyard is huge. You could put in thousands of people in there. And there's warehouses. And they laid us out in the courtyard, everybody. I mean, most of us, because we couldn't move. We couldn't do anything. And they undressed us and they deliced us. And they took off the shirts from us, or the pants, and the pants was moving. The shirts were moving with the lice. And they put they came with blowers with a powder, powdered us. Then they took us in for showers and they kept us, they washed us and they put us inside the building. Also on blankets, and that's the way we stayed for a while. And they told us not to eat. You only could have water, crackers, baked potato, burnt. Don't have no meat, don't have this, don't have that, because your stomach can't take that. But a lot of people died after it because they wanted to eat. They got into the warehouses and they took in the cans and they opened that up, the meats, and they were eating. While they were eating, they killed over. So, there was a guy came to me, and he was also from the next town, which I knew very well. And he brought a can. I don't know what it was, Spam, ham, meat, whatever. I couldn't even eat. So he ate. 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes later, he was gone. So that's the experience. Then they took us to hospital.
Before you go on with that, when you were walking along on the march, you actually saw Germans along the road looking at you?
Yes, definitely. Women, children, men. They didn't stop it. They didn't say anything. I mean, they knew what was going on. They say they didn't see it, they didn't know it. They knew everything.
They took you to the hospital?
The Americans, yes. I stayed for a while in the hospital till I got to myself. And I stayed there for about, I would say, a month. Maybe a little bit more. They took a picture of me. They made it like a passport of some kind. And they put on stateless that I came from Czechoslovakia, my name and the town. And I wanted to go back, and I lived to that. I think that's why I survived the whole thing, to be able to go back and take care of those people. I mean, confront those people. And I did make it.
Before you go on with that, what was the name of the hospital and where was it?
I don't know. I haven't got the slightest idea. It wasn't Germany. It was somewhere in Austria. And
Austria?
Oberösterreich, the Welz, Linz, around that vicinity. Welz or Linz.
Linz.
Yeah.
And you stayed there how long?
I stayed there, I don't know. I really can't tell. I must have stayed there for at least a month or maybe more. And once I was able to gather on and stuff like that, I wanted to go back. And I wanted to confront those people. What happened was they took us to the station, got into the train. We didn't pay no fare or anything like that. And in Czechoslovakia, well, it was not Czechoslovakia no more, but the Russian occupied it. In Kolina, I fell out of the train. I was very sick. I had typhoid fever.
Typhus or typhoid?
Typhoid fever. And I wound up there in the hospital, which I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how long I was there.
Where was this?
That was in Kolina.
Kolina?
Yeah, Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
And I was in that hospital. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know anything. If they wouldn't have had the papers, I wouldn't have, until I got to myself. And I used to bite myself to find out if I'm alive or if I exist or whatever. And from there, they let me out of the hospital. I gained quite a bit of weight. I gained quite a bit of strength. And I went to my hometown. Came there, I found an aunt of mine.
Halobina?
Holubina. I found an aunt of mine and a cousin, my father's sister and a daughter. And there was the Russian army. They had the headquarters there and they had everything. So when I came in there, they were very happy. I was happy to see them. And nobody else was alive. I thought my sister is going to be alive, my mother is going to be alive, because She was also a young woman. Maybe they're going to put her to work. You know, you hope for the best. And then I went to my house, and Gentiles were living in the house. There wasn't too much furniture of ours, only about one or two pieces. And I remember the lamp, because it was like a Tiffany lamp, which was going up and down, you know, into the ceiling. And I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. I had to get out. I went straight to the Russians. And I tried to explain, show them. I mean, they saw it. Show them. And just so happened, the guy was a Jew. The commander of that camp was a Jew. Told him the story. Gave me two men with a jeep. He says, if he tells you to kill that guy, kill him. He says, if you give the order, gives you the order, you do it. Carry it out. I got there. He was dead. The Russians killed him because he was going from the Hungarians to the Germans. There he was. And the partisans knew it. A lot of people got killed because of him. So they killed him. Went to somebody else, they killed him too. So I didn't have no more thing, you know. It was like a letdown, very big letdown.
He was a Hungarian, this man?
No, he was a Gentile. He wasn't Hungarian.
Czech?
He wasn't, yeah, I mean, that was the whatever.
And where was this other man? In the same house, or
What?
the second man? Where was he from?
He was in a different house. He was also in Holobina.
Uh-huh.
And
You went with them,
yes,
and they shot him?
no, he wasn't there. The Russians killed him for giving away their things, you know. He was finding out from people, the partisans used to come down, and they said they're partisans and the Russians are here and they're coming and they're going to be here. You know, they came down for food. And they found out about it, the Russians, and the Russians put them against the wall and they killed them all. Not only those two, but more. And my aunt wanted me to stay there, and I had a few items, you know, and I left it there, and I said to her, I'm going to, she was crying. She was saying, look, all the land, the orchards, is your father worked hard for it. We had homes, 2 homes. He says, why do you want to go away from here? I said, I'm not going no place. I'm just going to find my mother's family. So I went where I was born, to Kaidano. That was my mother's side of the family. And I found 2 cousins. And I got there like on Tuesday. I got to Holobina. Wednesday I left to go to Kaidano. I left everything there because she was crying. She didn't want me to leave.
Who was that, your cousin?
My aunt.
Aunt, yeah.
My aunt and my cousin. That was on my father's side. When I came to Kaidano, I found 2 cousins. And that was something like on a Thursday, Saturday, supposed to get married. My cousin, one of my cousins, there were 2 girls. And I stayed for the wedding, and I got up and I went back. And
To Holobina?
to Holobina, you know, because I promised. Also, my parents, they gave for a bar owner a lot of jewelry to hide, to keep it. So when I went back, I wanted the jewelry. They said that the Russians took it and they were wearing pair of my mother's diamond earrings, and that's all she has, which I did believe because, you know, she didn't have to give me back those diamond earrings, which she did. And my aunt put it in for me into the jacket. In those days, they used to have in the jackets the stuffing, what do you call it, the
Shoulder pads.
shoulder pads. And she put them into the shoulder pads, and each shoulder pad she put in one. And I said to my aunt, I said, look, I have to go back. And she didn't let me take my belongings. And I left. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't take it. And I went back to register all the towns. I went to Hungary, I went to Romania, I went to Poland, I went to Czechoslovakia, I went to big cities where there was registrations, where people went through, they registered in order to find if somebody survived in your family. And that's what I did. And I was in Pilsen, and the Russians picked me up. And they looked at my identification card that I come from, you know, so what are you doing here? You're supposed to be there. So I told them, I said, I'm going home. What do you mean you're going home? It's almost a year, you know, you were freed, it's 6 months, it's 7 months. Now I said, I was sick. And they put me away in Pilsen.
In jail?
At a jail, where they had their jail. And I came in there, and they had quite a few kids. I mean, young boys, you know, under 20, and a little bit over 20. And they took the clothes, and they opened it up, and they found the earrings. So right away they gave me the business because I'm lying. Where did you get this? So you tried to give them stories, but it didn't work. And they said, well, everybody's going to go to Siberia to work.
The date is November 7th, 1995. The survivor is Morris Stern, and this is tape number 4. You were saying that the Russians...
Yeah, the Russians took us into prison, and they mentioned that they're going to take everybody to Siberia to work. I met a couple of boys, 2 brothers. The name is Libovitz.
Slibovitz?
Libovitz.
Leibovitz.
And we were talking in there before they took us, and quite a few kids. And they said, look, there is going to be, first of all, the night is rainy, it's dark. They're going to have to make turns, sharp turns. When they make turns, they're going to have to slow down. We went through already the bad times. We're not going to have to go through again. Maybe if one of us is going to get killed, 2 of us are going to get killed. There is only 2 soldiers. How many could get killed? 1, 2, or shot, or nobody could get hit. They make the turn, jump off, everybody runs in different directions.
How many were there?
We were there about 20 some odd kids, 20 some odd boys. And that's what we did. We jumped off the trucks. I don't know if somebody got hurt or not. Everybody ran different directions. And I hope that most of them made it. I really don't know. So from there, I start walking. And I got hitchhiked. I hitchhiked to Železní Ruda, which is Czechoslovakia, and Eisenstadt, which is Germany, but it's a river. And I swam across. It was dark, and a few more boys. I think we were 4 of us. And we came into Germany. And there's no money again, no food. And we walked into a big Bürgermeister, which is the mayor of the town. And we asked, we really demanded it, that he give us rationing cards. We are from the concentration camps, which I still had in my pocket some proof. Most of it they took away, and they did give us money to buy the stuff, and they did give us rationing cards. And we walked into a German house, which there were 2 women, and we asked them if we could stay over, because it was bad weather, it was raining. And also, if there is any place that we could go and buy the food. And they didn't have no food either, which they said they know a place where they could go if they have the rationing tickets, which we did give them. We did give them some money, and they went out and we had dinner and we took showers and baths, like, not hot water, but washed up and got cleaned. And from there, we took a train, and we stopped. We said, well, it's easy to get, at least we're going to get a little money. We're going to get the rationing cards, and we're going to have what to eat. And that's what we did. And we stopped in every place we could and to go in and get the rationing cards and get the money for to buy the food.
From the city hall?
From the city hall, from the Bürgermeister. That's here is the mayor of the town. And we wound up in Feldorfing. There was a holdover. It was a camp for SS that the Jews took over. Also, I forgot to mention to you, when we were freed, Eisenhower came to camp, and he saw us. Laying on the grounds, and some people from their backs, the skin was gone, eaten up, and I was laying about 5 feet from him only. His tears were in his eyes. He had 2 soldiers with him, the bodyguards. Their tears were running, and he gave the orders to take care. So it wasn't a good experience. But at the end, we wound up in Feldorfing. And we were there. And we tried to go to Israel. There was also the Betards and organizations and the Zionists and But some of them went and they sent back the boats. They came back with the boats. They couldn't make it from Italy. I tried it. We were already loaded on the boats, went out, turned us back, went back to Italy. So we went back to Feldorfing, and that's where we stayed. Until they came and they told us, you are underage, you could go legally to Israel, to Palestine if you want. If you go to the United States, from the United States you could immigrate there and the English can do nothing about it. So we figured that's the way it should be. And we came to the United States.
How did you get here?
I got here, you have the papers, show you. I had here an uncle, a couple of uncles, and I had an aunt, which I didn't know. I had a cousin who she married the guy that I told you I was staying there in Kaidano. He had the address of one of my uncles. He gave it to me, and I wrote to him. He had a grocery. And my aunt, her husband was a taxi driver. And I got in touch with them. And they were very happy to hear from me, of course. And there was the United, what do they call it? The joint. I know you heard the joint, the Hayas. So the joint came around and they and my uncle, whatever, I don't know how it happened, but I got a card, and that's the real thing. From Marine Flasher, we came out here in 1946 in June, I think it was. With Marine Flasher, it was like a tugboat just for soldiers. There was no rooms or anything like that. There was 2 big rooms or 3 big rooms, and one room was showers and toilets, was open, no privacy whatsoever. And then there were hammocks, which it was like 7 or 8 hammocks, one on top of the other, and that's where we slept. And came out here to the United States.
Left from what port?
Bremenhaven.
Mm-hmm.
In Bremenhaven, from Feldorfing, I went to Bremenhaven. In Bremenhaven, they held us over for quarantine to see if you were healthy or you haven't got no disease and stuff like that. And we came here to the United States.
When you say we, you mean?
Well, there was other kids, other...
no relatives?
No relatives, no relatives. And matter of fact, the guys who we made up to jump from the truck from the Russia in Czechoslovakia, I met them here. Mm-hmm. We got together. Somehow or another, I don't know how it happened, but we were in a meeting, in those days, we used to get together, the refugees, and I remember where it was also. There used to be an organization, the Wiedergutmachung, in New York, and to apply for a restitution. I met them there, and I applied for restitution, so they sent me to all kinds of doctors, and they said I'm healthy, and they refused me. And they gave me like $3,000, $4,000, I don't know, for spending time in the concentration camp. And I spent $5,000 to fight them, but I didn't win, I lost. So I didn't get anything from them. So that's the way I met those the two Lubavitcher brothers, which one is in Israel. He left the United States. He really didn't want to stay here. I mean, he was one of those hot Zionists that he wanted to be in Israel. The other one, the other brother did stay here. He had a very wealthy uncle that he didn't know, but they looked up and they finally found him. He was in the Bronx and Boston Road, and he was a tie manufacturer. And he was selling to all the big department stores and shipping it all over the United States. And he took him in. And he was working there until I was in touch with him, till I myself went into business and the luncheonette business. And I was working like 48 hours a day, not 24, but 48 hours a day, be able to make it. And we lost touch. So then I met my wife. I was also contacted tuberculosis, which I went to Wickham Circle to Liberty, New York. I was there in the hospital for a while, but there you had to pay. So my uncle and my aunt, they didn't want to, or they couldn't afford to, whatever the story is. The relations wasn't so good because when I got there, he had 3 kids, and the youngest son, here is the foreigner, here is the greenhorn, and here is, and I felt that I don't have to take that, and which it wasn't too close. But one of them, I'm very, very close, even today. They live here in Wellington and in New York, which I have very good relationships. And I worked all kinds of minimal jobs when I came here. I worked as longshoreman, which I couldn't take. I worked for 3Gs in the Bronx, in Janik Street, which it was a good job, but my eyes wouldn't let me do the work, and the ophthalmologist said, if you're going to keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be blind. So
what kind of work was it?
Sewing. So he says, stop it, which I did. From there, I went to the health department to check my tuberculosis, and they found that I was positive. So the joint, was Denver National Tuberculosis Hospital in Denver, a free hospital, which anybody could go there, no pay, no nothing. And the joint sent me there.
Joint distribution?
Distribution sent me there, yes. And I spent there for about 9-10 months. And I had problems with my feet because of the work from the cement work that I did in the concentration camps. So they wanted to straighten out, so I had some surgery on my feet. My tuberculosis wasn't bad. I mean, I was not on bed rest or anything like that. Came back. I met my wife there in the hospital. And I came back to New York and started looking around what would be the best thing for me to do. And I was working at 23rd Street in a leather factory. And I was pushing the leather, the big push cars, for shaving the leather and stuff like that. I was all colors, red, green, blue, black, yellow, whatever you want. for all the colors used to came off, and I used to I went to Interbor Institute to take up bookkeeping and countometry, and I used to give out the work there in the leather factory, and I used to be the cleaning the factory, cleaning the shed houses, excuse me for my expression, and they wiped the floors with me. And whenever I used to go down, I used to see those luncheonettes busy, and they staying on the lines and everything. I figured, well, this is the best business to go into. That's the way I wound up in the luncheonette business. I went to work for people, and I saw what's doing, and went to work on 42nd Street at a Busy Bee, and I thought that that would be the best business. I didn't have the education that it takes, although I went to Washington Irving High, and I went to Interboro Institute, but it still was no college education or anything like that to get ahead. And to work for somebody, I didn't think I would be able to get ahead. So I met my wife in Denver, and I borrowed some money from my sister-in-law, and I bought into a place, and that's the way I started out in business. And working, like I said, not 24 hours a day, 48 hours a day, and kept it for quite a while going. And thank God, I wound up making a good living and having a wonderful wife.
And children?
2 kids, a daughter, a son, 2 grandchildren. They're fantastic children, well educated, gave them a nice home, gave them everything I can, which I still do. And thank God for little things. With the hard times that I had here, with cancer experience and everything else, it's still, I always say thank God for little things.
You had cancer?
Prostate cancer. I had my right testicle removed for that. I had quite little problems. And thank God for little things. I go for checkups, rough checkups, but you're around to talk about it. That's why I wanted to do this interview, because everybody's dying out, and I wouldn't want it to forget it, that people should forget what happened, that it still could happen even here if you let it. So this should only be a reminder for other people that we went through. Lost a very big family, very close family, not 20 or 30 people, but in the hundreds. So I hope this will be a reminder for people that they should remember that it could happen. They didn't think in Europe it could happen. My father should rest in peace, and other very learned men, they said, it's a program, it goes around for a day, for a week, for 2 weeks. But look what the Jews have here. The Jews are running the banks, the Jews are running the factories, the Jews own the land, the Jews are supporting half of the world, the Jews are the doctors, the lawyers, but it happened. So I'm doing this to see that it shouldn't happen, that people should be able to see it, that it should never happen to a Jew. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stern, who is the mystery woman on your right?
This is my beloved wife of 45 years.
In person.
And without her, I couldn't have done it. She was my support, my companion, my love. She was everything to me.
I put the medals away.
And we have two wonderful children, two grandchildren. My daughter's name is Susan, and my son's name is Robert, and my grandson's name is Adam, and my granddaughter's name is Ariel. They're fantastic grandchildren, and that makes me go on and want to live and enjoy see them to grow up. Also, I retired in 1981, and we came down here to Florida in 1982. We started coming down here, and I bought this home in 1984, and we moved down here. We traveled back and forth till '86. And now I reside here in Florida in Royal Palm Beach. It's a beautiful place to live in. And it's an easy place to live in. And I hope for little things, not big things, that it should never be worse, only better. And thank God I have my wife with me, and my children, my grandchildren. And that's my life. That's my life story of everything.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. I don't know whether it's a pleasure actually, but it's worthwhile.
Okay, this is a picture from Europe yet. That's my mother and my grandmother. And this picture was taken when she was about 15. And she probably was already pregnant with me, because she was 16 when I was born. And that's in my grandmother's home, the picture taken.
Thank you. Okay.
That's my father and mother, which was taken in Halabina, in our home. And I must have been at that time already about 6, 7 years old. And I had another brother, which he was 2 years younger than me. And I don't remember if there was a third child already or not.
Okay.
But that's my mother and father. This is a picture of me. It was taken in Brighton,
New York City.
New York City. I must have been already 20 years old, going on 21. And I was already on my way to recovery.
Good.
This is the ticket for the trip from Germany to the United States. The name of the boat was Marine Fleischer, and it took me 17 days to get here with this boat because the waters were very, very rough. Matter of fact, one guy jumped off the boat because he couldn't take the sickness. This is a passport given to me by the American occupation thing, because I didn't have any papers to acknowledge who I was, and came out from the concentration camp. It's about a year later that I came out of the concentration camp, and that's my picture up on there. And that's to be able to enter the United States. So that's the only means of identification that I had, given to me by the American consulate. Okay, there is my son, Robert Stein. There is Louise Stein, my daughter-in-law. There is my son-in-law, Valdez, Marco Valdez. And there is my daughter, Susan Valdez. And there is my wife and me. And there is my granddaughter, Ariel Valdez. And there is my grandson, Adam Katz. And that's my family, all my family.